The scream ripped through the cabin like a siren in a storm, freezing every soul mid-breath as the Boeing 737 hurtled toward Los Angeles at 35,000 feet. "He's assaulting me. Someone call security, now." The flight attendant's voice cracked, his finger jabbing accusingly at the man in 14C, whose face drained of color faster than the blood from a fresh wound. In that split second, the air thickened with whispers and gasps. But it was Rowan's eyes, wide, shattered, locked on the accusers, that betrayed the lie no one else could yet see. Rowan Ellis had never believed in fate. Not after the way it had gutted him 2 years ago in that rain-slicked alley behind a Brooklyn bar. But here it was, strapping him into seat 14C on a red-eye from JFK, the kind of flight where secrets fermented in the recycled air like bad wine. He was 28 now, lean and unassuming in his faded Levi's and a threadbare Henley that hugged his runner's frame just enough to hint at the miles he'd logged trying to outpace his ghosts. His chestnut hair was longer than he'd meant it to be, curling at the nape in a way that made him look boyish, vulnerable even, but his green eyes, those sharp, sea-glass shards, held the weariness of someone who'd learned to sleep with one eye open. The flight had started ordinary enough, the way all disasters do. Boarding in the dim glow of Gate 27, Rowan clutched his battered messenger bag like a shield, the one with the frayed strap from his days interning at that off-Broadway theater in the Village. He'd been heading to LA for a callback, a real shot at voicing an indie podcast about queer history, the kind of gig that paid an exposure and maybe a free coffee if you were lucky. Escaping New York felt like shedding skin, but the city's pulse still thrummed in his veins, a reminder of the life he'd clawed back from the brink. He settled into his window seat, the vinyl cool against his back, and pulled out his noise-canceling headphones, queuing up a playlist of Bon Iver tracks that always made him feel less alone. The cabin filled with the shuffle of lives in transit, a harried mom wrangling twins, a businessman barking into his phone about quarterly projections, a gaggle of college kids hyped on pre-flight Starbucks. Rowan let his gaze drift, people watching as the engines whined to life, until it snagged on him. Elias Kane. The name hit like a sucker punch, even before Rowan could place the face. Tall, broad-shouldered, with that effortless swagger that turned heads in any room, Elias was pushing a beverage cart down the aisle, his navy uniform crisp against his olive skin, the gold name tag glinting under the overhead lights. His dark hair was cropped short now, military neat, a far cry from the wild waves that used to tangle in Rowan's fingers during those stolen summer nights. But the jawline, shadowed with just enough stubble to rasp against skin, the full lips curved in that practiced flight attendant smile, unmistakable. Rowan's heart slammed against his ribs, a traitor organ that hadn't gotten the memo about moving on. 2 years. 2 goddamn years since Elias had vanished from his life like smoke from a cigarette he'd never finished. They'd met at a Pride after-party in the meatpacking district, back when Rowan was 26 and still believed in second chances. Elias, 30 then, fresh off a tour with Delta after scraping through flight school on scholarships and grit, had been the older guy with stories that made Rowan's pulse race. Tales of layovers in Tokyo where the neon blurred into dawn, or that time he talked down a panic attack mid-flight over the Atlantic. It started with a shared joint on a fire escape, the city sprawling below like a lover's promise. Elias's laugh was low and rumbling, the kind that vibrated through you, and when he kissed Rowan that first time, slow, deliberate, tasting of whiskey and want, it felt like the world had finally aligned. They dove in headfirst, weekend getaways to the Hamptons where they'd fuck until the sheets tangled like their limbs, lazy Sundays at Rowan's tiny Astoria apartment cooking pasta from scratch while arguing over Sondheim versus Springsteen. Elias called him Ro, a nickname that slipped out like a secret, and Rowan let himself dream of forever in the quiet hours. When Elias's head rested on his chest and the rain pattered against the fire escaped like applause. But forever cracked on a Tuesday in October, gray skies mirroring the storm brewing inside. Elias had come home late from a red-eye, smelling of stale coffee and something sharper, fear, maybe, or regret. "We need to talk," he'd said, voice flat as the Midwestern plains he grew up on. Rowan knew that tone. It was the one reservists used before shipping out. The one that said goodbyes were non-negotiable. Elias sat on the edge of the bed, elbows on knees, staring at the floor like it held the script. It's not working. I can't do it anymore," Rowan had begged. Hoarse, ugly pleas that stripped him bare. "What did I do? Tell me, Elias. We can fix it." But Elias's eyes stayed averted, his jaw set like concrete. "It's not you. It's me. The job. The hours, it's pulling me under. I need space. All of it." But Rowan swallowed them like shards of glass, choking on the blood of what they could have been. By dawn, Elias was gone, the apartment echoing with the ghost of his cologne, and Rowan was left piecing together a life from the wreckage. He'd thrown himself into work, voicing commercials for local brands, picking up shifts at a queer bookstore in Chelsea where the owner, a silver-haired drag queen named Miss Viv, dispensed wisdom like cheap Merlot. "Honey, love's a bitch with a PhD in breaking hearts," she'd say, sliding him a dog-eared copy of Call Me by Your Name. Rowan read it cover to cover, then burned through therapy sessions that peeled back layers until he could look in the mirror without flinching. He dated a barista with tattoos like watercolor, a playwright whose monologues were longer than his attention span, but nothing stuck. Elias lingered like a bruise that never faded, tender to the touch. But on this godforsaken flight, Elias was 10 rows away, oblivious or pretending to be. Rowan's stomach churned as the plane taxied, the safety demo droning on like white noise. He kept his head down, scrolling through emails he didn't need to read. But fate, or karma, that cruel jester, had other plans. Turbulence hit just after takeoff. The kind that rattles your bones and makes grown men grip armrests like lifelines. The seatbelt sign pinged on, and Elias's voice crackled over the intercom. "Folks, it's gonna be a bumpy ride. Stay seated. Keep those belts tight." Rowan risked a glance. Elias was striding the aisle, checking buckles with that efficient grace. His sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms corded from hauling luggage and holding back whatever demons chased him. Their eyes met for a fraction of a second, Elias's hazel depths widening in shock, then narrowing in something unreadable. Panic? Recognition? Regret? Rowan looked away first, heat flooding his cheeks, his pulse a war drum in his ears. The bumps eased after an hour, the cabin settling into that limbo of in-flight ennui. Rowan dozed fitfully, dreams laced with Elias's ghost, hands on his hips, breath hot against his neck, until a shadow fell across his tray table. He blinked awake to find Elias there, cart in tow, pouring coffee with hands that trembled just enough to betray him. "Cream? Sugar?" Elias's voice was steady, professional. but his gaze flicked to Rowan's like a moth to flame. "Black," Rowan muttered, the words scraping out rougher than intended. Their fingers brushed as Elias handed over the cup. "Electric." A spark that arced through the space between them, and for a heartbeat, the years dissolved. Rowan saw it, the flicker of the man who'd whispered, "I love you," into his collarbone at 3 a.m. The one who'd danced with him at a rooftop wedding under fairy lights strung like stars. But then Elias pulled back, the mask slamming down. "Anything else?" Clipped. Like Rowan was just another passenger. Another face in the crowd. Rowan shook his head, burning his tongue on the coffee to keep from saying the things clawing up his throat. Why? What the hell happened to us? The rest of the flight stretched like taffy, taut and sticky. Rowan nursed his coffee, staring out at the black void of night sky, the wing lights winking like distant fireflies. Whispers of memory tugged at him, that weekend in Provincetown, biking along the dunes with the wind whipping salt spray into their hair. Elias's laughter booming as they crashed into the surf fully clothed. Or the quiet terror of coming out to his conservative Iowa family over FaceTime. Elias's hands steady on his knee off camera. A silent anchor. How had it all unraveled so fast? By the time the descent began, Rowan's resolve had frayed. The cabin lights dimmed for landing, casting everything in a sepia glow that felt like a memory reel. He unbuckled early, nerves jangling, and when Elias passed for the final walkthrough, Rowan couldn't stop himself. He stood, blocking the aisle just enough to force eye contact. Elias. The name hung there, heavy as humidity before a storm. Elias froze, his tray clattering softly against his hip. "Sir, please take your seat. We're preparing for landing." "Bullshit." Rowan's voice was low, laced with 2 years' worth of ache. "You owe me 5 minutes. After everything. Everything." Elias's laugh was bitter, a bark that drew stares from nearby seats. His face twisted, that professional veneer cracking like thin ice. "You think you can just?" And then it shattered. Elias's voice rose, sharp and venomous, slicing through the hum of engines. "Get away from me. He's harassing me, touching me." He flung out an arm, gesturing wildly as if Rowan had lunged for him, his body language screaming violation. The cabin erupted. A woman in 15A gasped. Fumbling for her phone, the businessman 2 rows up bellowed for the captain. "What the fuck is going on back there?" Rowan staggered back, the accusation landing like a slap. "Elias." "What?" I didn't, but the words drowned in the chaos. Flight attendants converging like wolves on a scent. A burly coworker, mustache and all, grabbed Rowan's arm, twisting it behind his back with practiced efficiency. "Sir, you're coming with me." "Now." "Cuffs?" Just restraint." But it felt the same, humiliation burning hot in his chest as they marched him toward the galley, past rows of accusatory eyes. Whispers slithered like smoke. "Freak. Pervert." Rowan's vision blurred, tears pricking not from pain but from the sheer, soul-crushing betrayal. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was Elias weaponizing their history, turning love into a lie for all to see. The captain's voice boomed over the P. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've got a situation." Remain seated. But the damage was done. Rowan's world narrowed to the galley curtain, the metallic tang of fear on his tongue, and Elias's face, pale, haunted, peering from behind it like a specter he couldn't exorcise. 7 minutes. That's all it took for the truth to claw its way out. It started with a buzz from Rowan's pocket, his phone, somehow still clutched in his free hand, vibrating against his thigh. The mustached attendant snatched it, but not before the screen lit up with a text from Miss Viv. "Honey, you left your laptop at the shop. Unlocked. And oh God, that video. Elias? Call me now." Rowan's blood ran cold. The laptop. The one he'd forgotten in the rush to the airport, packed with voice memos, scripts, and, one encrypted folder he'd meant to delete. A video, grainy from the bar's security cam, time-stamped that October night 2 years ago. The night Elias hadn't just left. The night he'd shattered everything. The attendant's grip loosened as curiosity won out. He glanced at the screen, then at Rowan, then back at Elias, who was suddenly very interested in restocking napkins. "What's this about a video?" the guy grunted, thumbing open the message. Rowan, heart hammering, snatched a breath. "It's proof. Let me show you." "Please." Against protocol, against sanity, the curtain twitched shut behind them, sealing the galley in a bubble of fluorescent hell. The plane banked gently, LAX lights pricking the horizon like distant accusations. Elias's back was to them, shoulders rigid, but Rowan could see the tremor in his hands. "Play it," Rowan said, voice steady now, forged in the fire of necessity. The attendant, name tag read Kurt, hesitated, then tapped the link Viv had forwarded. The video buffered, then rolled, shaky black and white footage of the alley behind O'Malley's, the bar where they drowned sorrows in cheap IPAs that night. Rowan on his knees, not in supplication but in rage, pounding fists against Elias's chest. "You fucking coward. After everything." But the audio caught the pivot. Elias's voice slurring through tears. "I have to. For him. My brother's kid, Tommy, he's got leukemia. And the insurance. Delta's benefits are the only thing keeping him afloat. If they find out about us, about me, they'll ground me. Blacklist me. I can't lose this job." The alley spun in the grainy feed, Elias crumpling against the brick wall, sobbing as Rowan froze, the fight draining out like air from a punctured lung. "What, Elias? Why didn't you? My family. They're devout. Catholic to the bone. Dad disowned my uncle for being gay back in '98. The word gets out. It's not just me, they cut off Tommy's treatments. I saw it happen once, I can't." Elias's pleas devolved into whispers, the camera catching Rowan's hand reaching out. "Tentative. Broken. Then fight for us. We'll figure it. I can't." The finality in Elias's voice was a knife twist. He pushed away, vanishing into the night, leaving Rowan slumped against the dumpster like discarded trash. The video ended, the galley's silence thicker than fog rolling off the Pacific. Kurt's mustache twitched, his eyes darting between the frozen screen and Elias, who hadn't moved, his back a fortress of regret. "Jesus Christ, kushmutere." Releasing Rowan's arm like it burned. "You accused him? To cover your own shit." Elias turned then, slow as a man facing a firing squad. His face was ashen, hazel eyes rimmed red, the weight of 2 years crashing down in waves. "I didn't. I panicked. Seeing him, It all came back. The hiding. I thought if I pushed hard enough, he'd stay away. Protect him from me. Rowan's laugh was hollow, a sound scraped from the marrow. Protect me? You destroyed me. Elias. I thought I wasn't enough. That I was the flaw. The words hung, raw and ragged, drawing the oxygen from the space. Kurt backed away, muttering about the captain, leaving them alone in the dim galley, the plane's descent mirroring their plummet. Elias sank against the counter, head in hands. Tommy beat it. Last spring. Remission. But by then, I'd already lost you. And the job? They promoted me last month. No one's asking questions anymore. I could have come back. I should have. The confessions spilled like a dam breach, the endless nights Elias spent scrolling Rowan's Instagram from burner accounts. The therapy he'd started 6 months ago where Rowan was the safe word that unlocked every session. The way he'd volunteered for this route, New York to LA, hoping against hope for a glimpse, a chance to atone. But fear had twisted it into fury, the accusation a desperate shield against the vulnerability of "I still love you." Rowan listened, the hurt uncoiling slow. Not forgiveness but understanding, a balm on the scar tissue. The plane touched down with a jolt, tires screeching on tarmac, the cabin erupting in relieved applause. But in the galley, time stretched, elastic and forgiving. Kurt poked his head in. Captain's waiting. But handle it clean. Yeah. No reports if it's sorted. He vanished, leaving the door cracked, the post-landing bustle a distant roar. Rowan stepped closer, close enough to smell Elias's soap, clean, citrus-sharp, unchanged. I don't know if I can do this again, he said softly, truthfully. But I want to hear you say it. All of it. Elias looked up, tears carving tracks down his cheeks. I'm sorry. For the lies. The silence. For loving you too much to fight right. His hand extended, palm up, an offering. Rowan hesitated, then took it, their fingers lacing like puzzle pieces long separated. The jet bridge thumped against the fuselage, passengers stirring. But for that stolen minute, in the heart of LAX chaos, they stood, 2 men reclaiming a story they'd thought ended in ashes. Not fixed, not perfect, but human. And in America, where dreams crash as often as they soar, that was enough to shock the world back into color. The terminal at LAX was a beast of glass and chrome, swallowing arrivals whole under the relentless California sun that pierced even the vaulted ceilings like accusatory fingers. Rowan emerged from the jetway first, his messenger bag slung over one shoulder, the weight of the galley confessions still humming in his bones like the aftershock of an orgasm you weren't ready for. Elias had stayed behind, protocol. The flimsy excuses that masked the rawness of goodbye for now. Text me, he'd murmured as the door hissed open, his thumb brushing Rowan's knuckles in a promise neither trusted yet. Rowan wove through the throng, dodging harried travelers and the metallic tang of fast food grease wafting from concessions. His phone buzzed. Viv again. You okay? Kid? That video. Phil. He typed a quick alive. Complicated. Call later. Then pocketed it. The callback interview looming like a guillotine at 2 p.m. But his feet betrayed him. veering toward the nearest gate lounge instead of baggage claim, collapsing into a molded plastic chair that smelled faintly of industrial cleaner and regret. The shock hadn't fully landed. 7 minutes, that's how long the truth had taken to detonate, turning accusation into absolution, villain into victim. And what? A second act? Rowan's mind reeled back, unbidden, to the summer after they met, when love was still a verb, active and insatiable. It was July, the kind of New York heat that turns sidewalks into skillets and tempers to tinder. They'd escaped to Fire Island, Elias pulling strings for a friend's borrowed beach house on the Pines, that gay mecca where board shorts were optional and freedom tasted like salt and sweat. Rowan remembered the ferry ride clearest, wind whipping their hair, Elias's arms slung casual around his waist, fingers drumming a rhythm on Rowan's hip bone that said mine without words. This is us, Elias had yelled over the engine roar, grinning like a boy with a new bike. No schedules. No hiding. Just you and me and the goddamn ocean. The house was a weathered shingle affair. Porch sagging under the weight of potted ferns and forgotten beach towels. They claimed the loft bedroom with its skylight framing stars like a private planetarium. And for 3 days, time suspended. Mornings blurred into lazy fucks on the wicker chaise. Elias's body a landscape Rowan mapped with lips and tongue, the dip of his collarbone salty from the surf, the constellation of freckles across his shoulders that Rowan connected like forbidden dots. Afternoons were for volleyball on the beach. Shirts off. Sand grinding into every crevice as they dove for spikes. Laughter echoing over the dunes. Elias was electric there, uninhibited, his hazel eyes catching the light like polished amber when he tackled Rowan into the waves, pinning him down in the froth until their breaths mingled hot and desperate. Though, nights were sacrament. They'd wander the tea dances at the pavilion, bodies slick under strobes, Elias's hands possessive on Rowan's waist as remixes of Madonna pulsed through the air. Back at the house, buzzed on Rose and high on each other, they'd talk until dawn, Elias unspooling stories of his Ohio childhood. The farm boy who fixed tractors by day and snuck into the barn to kiss the stable hand by moonlight, only to get caught and shipped off to military school at 16. They called it tough love, he'd say, voice rough, tracing patterns on Rowan's thigh. But love? That was the part they beat out of me. Rowan would counter with his own scars, the straight kid from Des Moines who came out senior year and found his locker keyed with slurs, his parents' silence louder than any sermon. We met. Then, Rowan joked once. But Elias's kiss that followed was fierce. Brandy. As if to sear the wounds shut. It was on the last night. Fireflies dancing outside like errant thoughts. That Elias first hinted at the fracture. They lay tangled in sheets that smelled of sunscreen and sex. His head on Rowan's chest. Heartbeat sinking like a lullaby. What if this ends? Elias whispered. So soft Rowan thought he dreamed it. Then we fight, Rowan replied, fingers carting through Elias's damp hair. Like hell. Elias lifted his head, eyes shadowed. Some fights you can't win. Some you lose on purpose. But he kissed away the question, deep and devouring, and Rowan let it drown him. Back in the present, the lounge's AC hummed a dirge, pulling Rowan from the reverie. His watch beeped, 1:15. The callback. He stood, legs no, and shouldered his way to the rental car kiosk. The LA sprawl unfolding beyond the windows like a promise of reinvention. or ruin. The studio was in Silver Lake, a converted bungalow nestled in hills that smelled of eucalyptus and ambition. Rowan arrived 10 minutes early, palms damp as he signed in. The receptionist, a pierced millennial with a man bun, waving him to a waiting area strewn with dog-eared Variety mags. The director, a wiry guy named Theo with a goatee and glasses that screamed, "I once interned for Spielberg," greeted him with a firm handshake. Rowan Ellis? Love the reel. That spot for the shelter? Heart-wrencher. They dove in, a cold read of the script. Rowan's voice, warm baritone with a Midwestern lilt, bringing the narrator to life. Weaving tales of Stonewall riots and underground balls with a gravitas that hushed the room. Theo leaned back after take 3. Steepling fingers. Starts next week. Pays actual money. Rowan blinked. The yes landing soft as snow. Just like that. Theo chuckled. Talent like yours? Rare as a straight ally at Pride. Welcome to the family. The sun dipped low, painting the hills gold. And for the first time in hours, Rowan breathed easy. He fired off a text to Viv, booked it. And Elias. Long story. Dinner soon? Her reply pinged instant, hell yes. Bring wine and all the tea. But as he slid into the rental, a zippy Civic that felt too peppy for his mood, his phone lit up with an unknown number. It's me. Can we talk? Coffee? The Bean on Sunset. 7? The E hung there, innocuous as a period, but it cracked something open in Rowan's chest, a fissure where hope and hurt bled together. He stared at the screen until traffic honked him forward. Then typed, yeah. See you there. The Bean was a hole-in-the-wall joint. Fairy lights strung over mismatched tables. The air thick with espresso and indie folk crooning from hidden speakers. Rowan arrived early, claiming a corner booth with a view of the door, nursing a flat white that went cold untouched. The clock ticked past 7:05. Then 7:10. Doubt creeping in like fog off the hills. Had it been a mercy text? A moment's weakness in the galley's fluorescent glare? At 7:13, the bell jingled, and Elias walked in, out of uniform now, in faded chinos and a Henley that mirrored Rowan's, like some cosmic joke. His hair was tousled, as if he'd raked fingers through it one too many times, and under his eyes, shadows bloomed like bruises. He spotted Rowan, hesitated, then crossed the room with that loose-hipped stride that still set Rowan's pulse skittering. Mind if I? Elias gestured to the seat opposite, voice rough as gravel. Rowan nodded. Throw tight. You look like shit. Elias's laugh was watery, genuine. Kettle. Flight was eventful. He ordered a black coffee, strong enough to strip paint, and when it arrived, he cradled it like a lifeline. Silence stretched, taut as a wire, until Elias broke it. I meant it. Back there. The sorry. But words are cheap. I know that. Rowan traced the rim of his mug. Steam long gone. Then show me. Why'd you accuse me? On a plane full of strangers, what were you thinking? Elias winced, gaze dropping to the scarred tabletop. I wasn't. Seeing you. It was like a gut punch. All the what-ifs crashed in at once. And I defaulted to defense. The job trains you for threats. You know? To escalate. Isolate. But you weren't a threat. You're. He trailed off, swallowing hard. You're the one thing I couldn't isolate from. The admission landed soft, disarming. Rowan leaned forward, elbows on the table. Tommy's okay? Really? A nod. Fervent. Clear scans last month. Marie, my sister, she called yesterday, gushing about his soccer tryouts. Slave. The universe gave me a pass. But I blew it with you. Not blew, Rowan corrected, surprising himself. Delayed. Maybe. Elias's eyes lifted, searching, hopeful. Yeah, they talked then. Really talked. The way they used to, hours bleeding into the night. Waitstaff casting pitying glances as closing time loomed. Elias unburdened the aftermath, the bar crawls to numb the guilt. The hookup apps deleted after one too many ghosts of Rowan in the mirror. The promotion to lead attendant on Transcon routes. A badge of survival that felt hollow without someone to brag to. I kept the keychain, he admitted sheepishly, fishing a worn leather fob from his pocket, the one Rowan had handmade from a Fire Island seashell. Etched with Rho plus E forever. Pathetic. Right. Rowan took it, thumb brushing the grooves. Memory flooding back. The beach at midnight. Waves lapping as they buried it like a time capsule. Promising eternity. Not pathetic. Honest. The conversation turned to now, Rowan's gig. The LA leap he'd never planned. It's a start, he said. Warmth creeping in. Podcasts lead to voiceover. Voiceover to screens. Maybe even a face that doesn't scare kids. Elias grinned. The old spark flickering. You'd light up any screen. Always did. By 10 p.m., the bean was shuddering. Lights dimming to a romantic haze. They stepped out into the cooling night. Sunset Boulevard alive with taillights and laughter spilling from bars. Elias shoved hands in pockets. Rocking on heels. My layovers till morning. Hotels 2 blocks, Marriott. Walk with me. Rowan should have said no. Should have hailed an Uber and let the distance heal. But the air hummed with possibility. That electric undercurrent of second chances. Lead the way. The Marriott lobby was all marble and muted opulence. The kind of place that whispered transitory to weary travelers. Elias's room was on the 8th floor. A corner suite with a view of the hills twinkling like fallen stars. They rode the elevator in silence. Shoulders brushing. The air charged as a storm front. Inside. The door clicked shut, and Elias turned. Vulnerability etching lines around his mouth. No expectations, he said. Voice low. Just stay, talk more, or not talk. Rowan's resolve crumbled like dry earth. He closed the gap. Hands fisting Elias's shirt. Pulling him down into a kiss that was all teeth and forgiveness, fierce. Reclaiming. Elias groaned into it. Hands roaming familiar paths, the curve of Rowan's spine. The dip of his waist. Mapping scars turned to stories. Clothes shed in a trail to the bed. Bodies colliding with the urgency of the interrupted. It was slower than Fire Island. More deliberate, Elias's mouth tracing the line of Rowan's jaw. Whispering apologies against his pulse point, Rowan's nails digging crescents into Elias's back. Urging more. Please. They moved like a tide. Ebbing and cresting. Elias's name a litany on Rowan's lips as release shattered them both. Sticky and spent in the king-sized sheets. tangled and breathless. Elias's fingers traced lazy circles on Rowan's chest. "I don't deserve this," he murmured into the dark. Rowan turned, pressing lips to Elias's temple. "None of us do. But here we are." Dawn crept in pink and gold, the hills waking to birdsong. Elias had an early flight back to JFK. The cycle unbroken, but he lingered, brewing hotel coffee in paper cups. "Come visit," he said at the door, hazel eyes earnest. "When you're settled." "No pressure," Rowan nodded, the keychain heavy in his pocket. "I will. Promise." The goodbye kiss was soft, a seal on fragile peace. As the elevator descended, Rowan exhaled, LA's sprawl unfolding below like an open palm. Not fixed, but mending. And in the city of fallen angels, that felt like grace. But grace, Rowan knew, was fickle. 2 weeks later, as he settled into a sublet in Echo Park, a airy loft with exposed beams and a balcony overlooking the reservoir, the cracks began to show. It started small, texts from Elias tapering from daily sonnets to sporadic check-ins, laced with busy shift and miss you emojis that felt like placeholders. Rowan chalked it up to miles, to the tyranny of time zones, throwing himself into the podcast instead. The booth was a closet of soundproof foam in Theo's garage. Scripts piling up like autumn leaves, episodes on Harvey Milk's defiance, the pulse of ballroom culture in the Bronx. His voice filled the space, resonant and raw, earning fan mail that trickled in via email. "You make history feel alive." "Thank you." Viv flew out for a weekend, crashing on his couch with a suitcase of takeout menus and tough love. "He's spooked, honey," she declared over dim sum, chopsticks waving like a conductor's baton. "Men like Elias? They run when it gets real. But you're the anchor." "Reel him in slow," Rowan tried. A care package shipped to Elias's crew locker, New York Deli Rye. A mixtape of their old playlist digitized for the cloud. The thank you call was midnight magic, Elias's voice husky from fatigue, recounting a layover in Miami where he danced alone to Escape, the Piña Colada song, thinking of Rowan. "Come to the city," Elias urged. "My next rotation's open." Rowan booked the ticket, heart light as he packed, a week in November, leaves turning in Central Park. But the flight east was a harbinger, turbulence fiercer than memory. The seatbelt sign a constant companion. He landed jittery, hailing a cab to Elias's new place in Queens, a walk-up with fire escapes that evoked their Astoria ghosts. Elias buzzed him up, the door swinging open to arms that crushed him close. "Good, Ro," he breathed, nose buried in Rowan's hair. "You smell like home." The week unfolded like a dream reel, brunches at Clintonisty Baking Company, where pancakes stacked high as their hopes, a matinee of Rent on Broadway. Hands clasped through La Vie Boheme, as if they were 22 again. Nights were feverish, bodies rediscovering rhythms, Elias's laugh muffled against Rowan's thigh. Rowan's gasps echoing off brick walls as Elias mapped him with tongue and teeth. But under the idol, shadows stirred. Elias's phone buzzed incessantly, work. But the screens he'd flip away when Rowan stirred spoke of more. One morning, over coffee black as sin, Rowan glimpsed a text, "Tell him or I will." Families asking. "And Marie?" The sister. Elias caught him looking, face paling. "It's nothing." Tommy's birthday planning. Rowan set down his mug, the ceramic clinking like a warning bell. Elias. Talk to me. Like we promised. The air thickened. The kitchen suddenly too small. Elias paced, hands raking hair. She knows. About us. Saw my Insta story, that photo from the bean. The one with the hills. Put two and two together. Rowan's pulse quickened. Not fear but fierce. And Elias stopped. Back to the counter. Defeat etching his posture. She wants me to tell the folks. Time to stop hiding. Eli. But dead. He's old now. Hard stuff. The shock could. Could what? Rowan's voice rose, edged with the old hurt. Kill him? Like your happiness would? Elias. This isn't 1998. You're not that kid in the barn anymore. Elias's eyes flashed. Defensive. Easy for you to say. Your folks sent care packages when you came out. What? They pray for my soul every Sunday. The words landed like barbs, drawing blood. Rowan stood, chair scraping. So what? We hide forever? Pretend at family dinners? At holidays? Elias. Not again. It's not forever. But Elias's tone wavered. The lie transparent. They left it there. Simmering. The day salvaged by a walk in Prospect Park, crunch of leaves underfoot. Hot cider from a vendor masking the chill. But the fracture widened that night. Over pasta at their old haunt in Little Italy. Elias's fork paused midair as Marie's call came through. Speaker en accident. Eli. Dad's asking about that friend in the photo. Time's up. Elias fumbled the end call. But the damage bloomed. Rowan's appetite fled. Tell him, he said quietly. I will. For real this time. Elias's face crumpled. The mask of the unflappable attendant shattering. I love you. But family. We are family, Rowan countered. Voice breaking. Or were you lying in that hotel bed too? The argument spilled into the street. Voices low but lacerating. Passers-by averting eyes from the queer drama unfolding under sodium lamps. Elias stormed off first. Cab vanishing into traffic. Leaving Rowan adrift in the village's neon haze. Tears hot on his cheeks. He crashed at Viv's that night. The couch of familiar exile. Betrayal twice over, he sobbed into her shoulder. Her sequined robe scratching like penance. He chose then. Choosing again. Viv rocked him, humming an old Judy Garland tune. Baby. Love's not a choice. It's a leap. He jumped once. Might again. Morning brought a voicemail. Elias. Voice wrecked. I told them. Screaming match. Dad hung up. But Marie. She's on our side. Come home. Please. Rowan listened on repeat. Heart fracturing and fusing in equal measure. The cab to Queens was a blur. The door opening to Elias, red-eyed. Rumpled. But reaching. I'm done hiding, he rasped. Pulling Rowan inside. All in. The makeup was messy. Apologies sealed with salt and skin. Bodies colliding in the hallway like waves against jetty. But this time, to stuck deeper. Tua. Thanksgiving came swift. Elias's family home, a ranch house in Ohio. Cornfields whispering under November skies. Rowan waited in the rental car. Palm slick, as Elias faced the porch light alone. Minutes stretched eternal. Then the door flew open, Marie enveloping Elias in a bear hug. A small figure peeking out, Tommy? Gap-toothed and grinning. Dad lingered in shadow, but his nod was grudging. A crack in the armor. Rowan joined them inside, the air thick with turkey and tension. But Marie's hand on his arm was steady. Welcome, Rowan. Dinner was stilted, forks clinking. Small talk about harvests and schools, but Elias's foot nudged his under the table. A Morse code of "we made it." In the guest room with its quilted bed and wallpaper faded as memory. Elias curled around him, breath warm. Scared shitless, he admitted. But worth it. For this, Rowan turned, kissing the worry lines away. For us, the flight back to LA was smooth. No accusations. No ghosts. Elias stayed, requested a transfer to the West Coast hub, trading red eyes for sunsets. They built slow, joint lease on a bungalow in Los Feliz. Mornings with coffee and scripts. Evenings tangled on the couch watching Brokeback reruns. Laughing through tears. The podcast launched to acclaim. Rowan's voice a beacon for a new generation. Elias flew domestic now. Layovers in their bed instead of lonely hotels. Betrayals faded to footnotes. Conflicts to campfire tales. 1 year on. At LAX International Terminal, Elias's first long haul in ages, they stood by the departures. Tickets to Tokyo in hand. Adventure? Elias asked. Grin boyish. Rowan leaned in, lips brushing ear. Always, the gate called. But they lingered, hands clasped. The world a blur. In America's vast sky. They'd found their flight path, not straight, but true. And that truth? It shocked no one more than them. Winter in LA was a myth. The kind tourists chased with flip-flops and false expectations, sunny days bleeding into January, palm fronds rustling like applause for the relentless optimism of it all. But for Rowan and Elias, the season carried a sharper edge. A reminder that even in perpetual bloom, roots could rot if not tended. Their bungalow in Los Feliz was a testament to that fragile tending, succulents thriving on the windowsill, a gallery wall of Polaroids, Fire Island dives, Ohio embraces, curating a narrative of survival. Rowan thrived in the chaos of his rising profile. The podcast echoes unerased. Hit 50K downloads by spring. Sponsors trickling in like hesitant rain. A queer-owned bookstore chain. A therapy app for LGBTQ plus youth. Theo pushed for expansion. Screen time. You're made for the close-up, and auditions followed. Bit parts in streaming dramas where Rowan's Midwestern earnestness lent authenticity to the everyman heroes. He booked a guest spot on a Netflix limited series about the AIDS crisis. His monologue opposite a grizzled veteran actor drawing tears from the crew. Kid, the director said after wrap. Clapping his shoulder. You're carrying ghosts like they were born to you. Elias, meanwhile, navigated the skies with renewed vigor. His West Coast base a godsend, flights to Seattle or San Diego. Home by dusk more often than not. The transfer had cost him seniority, but the trade-off was Elias in the kitchen at 7 p.m. Sleeves rolled, stirring risotto while blasting Springsteen, his off-key baritone harmonizing with the sizzle. Bruce gets it, he'd say, tasting a spoonful and passing it to Rowan for approval. Born to run, But sometimes you stay put. Yet beneath the domestic hum, fissures lingered. Elias's family mended slow as frost thaw. Marie's weekly calls bridged gaps. Tommy's artwork arriving in envelopes scrawled with Uncle Eli plus Uncle Ro. But Dad's silence echoed like a held breath. A Christmas card came in December, unsigned. But the check enclosed for housewarming spoke volumes. Elias framed it on his nightstand, a talisman against the ache. Rowan noticed the toll in subtler ways. Elias's gaze lingering on family photos during layovers. The way he'd scroll Zillow for Ohio ranches on sleepless nights. Just dreaming, he'd deflect when caught. But Rowan's gut twisted with the unspoken. What if we uproot? What if LA's not enough? The conflict crested in April, under a sky bruised with rare rain. Elias had a rare week off, and they'd planned a road trip up the coast, Big Sur. Those cliff-hugging highways where the Pacific crashed like untamed emotion. They piled the Civic with playlists and provisions. Elias behind the wheel, Rowan's hand on his thigh as Carmel blurred past. It started idyllic, picnics on pebble beaches. Elias sketching Rowan in charcoal against the surf. His artist's eye, honed in lonely hotel rooms, capturing the wind-tousled hair and sun-kissed freckles. My muse, Elias teased, smudging graphite on Rowan's nose, pulling him down for a kiss that tasted of salt and sketchpad. But by Montreux, the undercurrent surfaced. They wandered Cannery Row, arms linked, the literary ghosts of Steinbeck whispering of lost dreams. Elias paused at a bookstore window, display stacked with of mice and men. Dad loved this, he said, voice distant. Read it to me as a kid. Best laid schemes, oh, mice and men gang aft eagerly. Rowan squeezed his hand. Yours didn't. Look at us, gang aft right. Elias's smile didn't reach his eyes. That night, in a cliffside inn with waves thundering below, he unspooled the knot. Marie's pregnant. Another boy. Dad's over the moon, talking legacies. Farm hands to carry on. His fingers traced Rowan's ribs. Absent. What if I want that? The piece of it. Not the hiding, but the roots. Rowan's breath caught. The sheets suddenly clammy. You want to go back? To Ohio? Not full-time. But closer. Visits that aren't battlegrounds. A life where Tommy calls me Dad someday. You know. Elias's voice cracked. The dream spilling raw, a house with a yard for soccer games. Holidays without eggshell walking. A family that claimed them whole. Rowan sat up, heart pounding. And me? I'm booked solid here. The series shoots in June. This is my shot. Elias, if we build it together. Elias's face shadowed. The lantern light carving hollows. I know. But LA's your orbit? Meanness. Scattered. What if we drift? The words ignited the powder keg. Drift? Like you did before? Choosing blood over us? Rowan's voice rose, echoing off rafters. Rain lashing the windows like judgment. I thought we were past this. No more half-lives. Elias bolted up, hurt flashing to fury. It's not choosing, it's including. You think I want to lose you again? But pretending my past doesn't pull, that's the half-life. The fight raged through midnight, accusations hurled like lifelines. Selfish and scared ricocheting until exhaustion claimed them. Backs turned in the king bed. The space between a chasm. Dawn broke gray. the Pacific indifferent. They drove home in staccato silence, radio off. The Civics hum a dirge. At the bungalow, Rowan grabbed his gym bag. "Run," he said. Clipped. "Clear my head." Elias nodded, eyes red-rimmed. "Me too." Shift starts at noon. Miles later, pounding pavement along the reservoir. Rowan's lungs burned with more than exertion. Betrayal stung fresh, not the accusation on the flight, but this, the dream diverging, love demanding compromise he wasn't sure he could give. His phone buzzed mid-stride. "Theo, call back tomorrow." Lead in the pilot. "Don't fuck it up." The high crashed against the low. Ambition a double-edged blade. Back home, Elias was gone. A note on the fridge, "Love you." "We'll figure it." Rowan showered off the sweat, but the doubt clung. That night, alone with takeout and the Crown on mute, the bungalow felt cavernous. Text from Viv pinged, "Spill? Darling. Storm clouds over paradise?" He poured it out. "Digital catharsis?" Her reply a lifeline, "Humanita? Baby. Love's a negotiation, not a surrender. Fight smart." The next day's callback was electric, Rowan nailing the read. Theo whooping as the slate clapped. "You're the guy. Ellis." The heart of it. Champagne corks popped in the parking lot. But Rowan's fizz fell flat. Elias's shift running late. He waited up, script in lap, until 2 a.m. When the key turned, Elias stumbled in, uniform askew, smelling of jet fuel and bourbon. "Hey," he slurred, dropping keys on the counter. "Good day." Rowan set the pages aside, voice steady. Booked the lead. Pilot shoots in Vancouver. 3 months. Ilias es facile? Then dimmed. Vancouver? That's far. Temp. Like your layovers. Rowan stood. Closing distance. But we talk it through. No ghosts. No ultimatums. Elias sagged against him, breath hitching. "I called Dad today. From the tarmac. Told him about you, really about you. The podcast. The fire in your voice." He listened. "Sounds like a good man." Rowan's throat tightened, tears pricking. "He did." A nod. Elias's arms banding tight. "It's a start. Anne-Marie's baby? We'll fly out for the shower. Together." The release was seismic, kisses turning fervent. Hands stripping away uniforms and scripts. Bodies tumbling to the rug in a heap of limbs and laughter. Elias moved with reverence, mouth worshipping the arch of Rowan's back. Whispers of mine, always punctuating thrusts that blurred pain to pleasure. Rowan arched, gasping Elias's name like prayer. Their climax a shared supernova. Sticky affirmation on the living room floor. Wrapped in a throw blanket amid the debris, Elias traced Rowan's jaw. I panicked again. Thought if I voiced it, it'd break us. Rowan kissed his palm. The bends. We're bendy. Spring unfurled forgiving. The bungalow blooming with basil and window boxes. Their rhythm resensed. Elias joined Rowan for a podcast taping, voice cameo as a historical figure, his gravelly timbre drawing fan swoons. They hosted a pride barbecue in the yard. Miss Viv flying cross-country to queen it. Tommy FaceTiming from Ohio to toast with juice boxes. But humanity's arc bent toward light through shadow. And summer brought the next test, not betrayal between them, but from without. Elias's promotion came mid-July, regional supervisor, overseeing crews from LAX to SFO. Perks included a corner office and stock options. But the catch? Relocation to Seattle for training, 6 months, starting September. "We'll survive," Elias said over anniversary tacos at a taqueria on Olvera Street. Fairy lights twinkling like their first date. "Weekends." "Miles?" Rowan nodded. But the fork in the road loomed. "Is pilot greenlit? Filming Vancouver in fall, overlapping orbits? A cosmic joke." "Promise calls," he said. Clinking beer bottles. Every night. The separation stretched like taffy, sweet then snapping. Elias's texts from rainy Seattle were laced with longing. Hotel beds too big. "Send nudes?" Rowan's from Vancouver sets, wrapped scene. "Monsieur laugh. Call soon?" Time zones conspired against them. Voices crackling over spotty Wi-Fi. Intimacy reduced to pixels and promises. October hit hard. Elias's first supervisor shift went south, a mechanical delay stranding 200 passengers overnight. Irate calls from corporate. He vented to Rowan post-midnight. Voice frayed. "I'm in over my head. What if I fuck this?" Rowan's hotel room in Gastown was sterile. Rain sheeting the window. "You won't. You're the guy who talks down mid-air meltdowns." "This? Just turbulence." But doubt seeded. Rowan's co-star. A charming Brit named Finn with cheekbones like knife edges. Became set confidant, late-night script runs turning to shared whiskeys. Laughs that echoed Elias's but sharper. Freer. Nothing crossed lines. But the proximity chafed. A reminder of what distance devoured. The call that broke it came Halloween night. Rowan in full zombie makeup for a rap party. Elias fresh off a red-eye. "Dad's sick," Elias said. No preamble. Heart scare. "In hospital." "I need to go now." Rowan's party buzz faded. "I'm booking a flight." "Meet you there?" Silence. Then, "No." Fit. "Shoot's almost done." "This is family." "Our family." The hour landed like a stone. Rowan paced the hotel carpet. Grease paint itching. "Elias, that's what I am." "Let me be there." "You are." Elias's voice cracked. "But Vancouver's your now." "Ohio's mine." Balance. The goodbye was rushed. Love yous tacked on like afterthoughts. Rowan flew to Ohio anyway, arriving dawn to the hospital's antiseptic hush. Elias looked wrecked in the waiting room, stubble thick. Eyes hollow, collapsing into Rowan's arms with a sob. "He asked for you." "After the scare," he said. "Bring that voice actor boy." Heard the podcast. The room was small. Beeping monitors a chorus. Dad frail under starched sheets. Tubes snaking like regrets. His grip on Rowan's hand was papery but firm. "Eli says you're good for him. Keep him honest." Rowan swallowed. Voice steady. "Always will. Sir." Dad's eyes. Faded blue. Held his. "Call me Frank." "Sorry." For the silence. Old habits. Forgiveness flowed easy then. A river carving canyons. Frank recovered slow. But visits became routine, Rowan reading podcast scripts aloud. His timbre drawing chuckles from nurses. Elias watched, awe softening his edges. "You make everything better," he whispered one night in the motel. Hands gentle as they loved. Slow and sacred. By Christmas, Frank was home. A truce in the form of pecan pie shipped west. The bungalow decked in lights. Elias and Rowan hosted Viv and Theo. Toasts to Bendy Love. Seattle training wrapped. Elias back full-time. The skies kinder. Spring brought renewal, Rowan series renewed for season 2. Elias eyeing a ground gig, training academy. Stateside steady. They adopted a rescue mutt. A scruffy terrier named Jet, who claimed the couch's throne. The true shock came July 4th. Fireworks blooming over Griffith Observatory. On a blanket amid picnickers, Elias knelt. Ring glinting, simple gold. Engraved raw e forever. Marry me? Not for show. For us. Rowan pulled him down. Kish amid expulsions. Just 1,000 times. The wedding was small, Los Feliz courthouse. Viv officiating in full drag. Marie and Tommy flying in. Frank in a suit that hung loose but proud. Vows exchanged under jacaranda blooms. Petals raining purple confetti. Years folded forward, podcast empire. Elias's academy directorship. A house in the hills with a yard for Jet's zoom eyes. Tommy's graduation. Frank's toasts slurring sentimental. Dramatic and deep. Wove human threads, betrayals mended. Conflicts conquered. Romance a quiet fire. In America's heartland and Hollywood haze. Rowan and Elias flew on, turbulent, true, together. The decade mark crept up sly as a cat in the night. 2035 dawning with the same LA. Insistence, sunrise gilding the hills. Traffic a symphony of horns and haste. Rowan Ellis Kane, 38 now. Surveyed his reflection in the bungalows, now houses, master bath mirror, laugh lines etching crinkles around sea-green eyes. Silver threading the chestnut at his temples like deliberate highlights. The voiceover empire had bloomed into a production company. Echoes unerased spawning docs and a Hulu series narrated by A-listers. Rowan's baritone the throne. Awards cluttered the mantle, a Webby for innovation, a Glad for impact, but the real trophy snored softly in the next room. Elias. Sprawled amid Egyptian cotton. One arm flung possessive even in sleep. Elias Kane Ellis, 42. Had traded cockpits for classrooms. Dean of Delta's training academy in a sleek Van Nuys facility where he molded rookies with the same steady hand that once steadied Rowan storms. His hair was fully silver now. Cropped close. Lending gravitas to the hazel eyes that still sparked wicked on lazy Sundays. The regional supervisor gig had been a stepping stone. This was legacy, diversity initiatives he'd championed. Ensuring queer cadets flew uncloseted. Unafraid. Their life was a tapestry of the earned. The Los Feliz house expanded with a guest suite for Tommy. Now 15 and a soccer phenom eyeing UCLA, annual Ohio pilgrimages where Frank, 78 and feisty, grilled Rowan on those Hollywood sins, with a wink that betrayed affection. Marie's boys, 2 now. With a girl on the way, called them Uncles Roe and Eli. Holiday chaos a balm on old wounds. But humanity's narrative favored nuance over neat bows. And the 10-year vow renewal, planned as a vow celebration in Big Sur. That cliffside cradle of their mending, stirred dormant currents. Invites went out. Resplendent in retirement as a podcast host herself, Theo, now showrunner with a spouse and twins, Marie's brood. Frank presiding. Elias booked the inn. Rowan the menu, sustainable seafood. Vegan options for the evolving palates. The drive north was a time machine, Highway 1 curving dramatic. Ocean a sapphire roar. Elias's hand on Rowan's knee as Springsteen crooned from the speakers. Remember the fight? Elias asked. Thumb circling denim. Rain and recriminations? Rowan chuckled. Wind tousling silver strands. How could I forget? You stormed off like a diva in a bad rom-com. Elias's laugh rumbled. And you showed up anyway. Hero. The inn loomed nostalgic. Rooms reserved en suite with that same thunderous view. Guests trickled in, hugs and champagne flutes clinking under pergolas draped in bougainvillea. Dinner was a feast, lobster bisques steaming. Toasts flowing freer than the Napa cab. Viv raised her glass. Sequins catching sunset. To love that bends but never breaks, salute. Frank, seated beside Marie, cleared his throat. Voice gravel from years of sermons unspoken. To second chances, he said. Eyes on Elias. And the man who made my boy whole. The words landed seismic. Frank's hand extending to Rowan, a clasp firm. Final. Tears pricked. But the night spun joyful, dancing on the terrace to a string quartet's Wonderwall. Tommy spiking volleyballs on the lawn with Jet. Now grizzled but game. Midnight found them alone on the bluffs. Waves a hush below. Stars a canopy overhead. Elias pulled Rowan close. Slow dancing to phantom music. 10 years, he murmured. Breath warm on neck. Feels like yesterday's promise. Rowan leaned back. Hands framing Elias's face, lines mapped by laughter. But. And tomorrow's vow. But dawn brought the shadow. Rowan woke to Elias's side cold. Note on the pillow, balcony. Come. The view was breathtaking, mist veiling the surf, but Elias's posture was rigid. Phone clutched like contraband. Frank called it 4, he said. Voice hollow. Stroke. But he's asking for us, both. Rowan's stomach plummeted. The jet. Elias nodded. Eyes shadowed. Booked. But he wants a story. The real one. How we met. The flight. The truth. For the telling, he said. The flight to Columbus was a blur, commercial this time. No perks for the grounded, turbulence mirroring turmoil. Hospital again. That sterile purgatory. Frank diminished in the bed. Monitors a mechanical requiem. Marie hovered. Eyes puffy. Tommy subdued in the hall. Frank's gaze found them in the doorway. Weak but wicked. Wings clipped. See. They did. Hands linked under the rail. Tell it, Frank rasped. From the skies. Elias started. Voice steady, the red-eye accusation. The galleys unraveling. The video's verdict. Rowan chimed in, the ache of abandonment. The galley's grace. Frank listened. Breath shallow. A faint smile cracking lips. Fool boy, he murmured to Elias. Hiding love like a sin. But you found your way. Tube snaked. But his hand found Rowan's. You too. Voice man. Gave him backbone. The vigil stretched days, nights in a motel with takeout and tears. Marie's kids a distraction of cartoons and chaos. Frank rallied once. Demanding pied, réel. Not hospital sludge, and they smuggled in slices from a diner, feeding him bites amid laughter that bordered sobs. On the 5th day, as autumn leaves skittered outside, Frank slipped quiet, holding Elias's hand, Rowan's voice murmuring a podcast excerpt on resilience, words weaving closure. The funeral was small. Ohio church packed with farm folk and family. Frank's casket oak-polished under stained glass. Eulogy fell to Elias. Voice breaking on, "He learned to see us." At the end, Rowan stood sentinel, arm around him, Tommy's head on his shoulder. Back in Ely, the house felt haunted, Frank's absence a void in toasts and tales. Grief crested in waves, Elias chopping wood for a non-existent hearth, Rowan narrating episodes on loss that cut too close. Viv flew in, her drag packed, "Darling, sorrow's a season." Spring follows. Slow greening. Marie's baby arrived, a girl. Named Frances for the fighter, video calls filling the nursery with coos. Elias channeled it into work, a scholarship in Frank's name for rural queer youth. Aviation dreams funded. Rowan's series won Emmys. His acceptance a nod to "The Man Who Flew Me Home." Elias watched from the audience. Silver Fox proud. Their kiss backstage a spark amid flashes. 20 years on, Gray fully claimed them. The hills still calling. They renewed vows proper, Maui Beach. Barefoot under plumeria. Tommy best man. Marie matron. To truths that shock, Elias vowed. Rings sliding home. And loves that endure, Rowan echoed. In America's endless blue, they soared, dramatic, devoted, defiantly human. The flight's accusation? A footnote in triumph. The truth? They're forever.